So, we were going to do a little bit of reacts and watch some of the... I hadn't decided, either First Descendants or some Gears Law, because, well, we've seen me playing First Descendants and I have to skip every fucking cutscene, so I have no idea what's going on in the lore. And apparently the friends of play say it's actually pretty interesting, question mark. But so we're going to either do that, we're going to do some Gears, because when we're done with Wulong, I feel like I want to maybe just play like a little bit of a bro game with not a lot of like thought process involved, and just be able to like finish something. And I'm a bit of a sucker for the Gears franchise. I enjoyed it when I was younger. Played through some of it with friends on the old 360, and recently started listening to a whole Gears audiobook. Thought, fuck it, you know, it's on Game Pass, why not? I never played 4, 5, or 6, or 4 and 5. Actually, I don't know what number they're on, but anyway. So queued up YouTube, we're going to watch some of that shit, and up comes a new Totally Not Mark, predicting the end of Dragon Ball Super. What the fuck was that on the Ludwig video? YouTubers I can beat in fight. Okay, cool. And I just couldn't help myself. So, this is where we are going. Also, check out Totally Not Mark. Fucking great YouTube videos if you haven't seen other stuff.
There's a certain scene from Dragon Ball Super that I haven't been able to get out of my head.
Okay, so this is Granola. He's not in anything important, or not in anything important. Not in the anime yet, and that's Goku. If you don't know who Goku is, then questions.
For the better part of 2 years. It was shocking, tense, and it reframed how I thought about Dragon Ball Super's future entirely. This scene that consumed my imagination was the birth of Black Frieza. Striking in form, it wasn't this dark new...
I feel like I've gone with a different name except Black Frieza. But also... Okay, preface this. Frieza's probably one of my favorite Dragon Ball characters. I am a sucker for a good villain. I tend to really like a lot of villains. I find the ones that have a cool, striking, weird appearance are great. I am a massive Frieza fan. Also, one of my favorite characters in Dragon Ball is also fucking Piccolo for some reason. Apparently, we like weird-looking motherfuckers. But I was really excited when they brought back Resurrection X. Now that he's the F, and then his whole part in the Tournament of Power Saga was really dope. I don't know if I want to see them going with Frieza being a good guy, and I was worried that was going to be the outcome of the Tournament of Power arc, where he helps them win, yes, to protect himself and selfish reasons, blah, 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 blah. So I get that for his character arc. But the whole thing of, like, I don't know if it was also in the Japanese version or just in the English dub, where he's like the throw me Saiyan instead of throw me monkey. A lot of people kind of read into it as a turning point for his character of he might be good. And I don't know if I'm comfortable with that kind of lifestyle where Frieza's actually good. We're getting sidetracked. Also, yes, this is his new power-up in the manga, in case you weren't following or didn't know. He is now stronger than everyone.
New facade that gave
Well, that's how it ended, at
this
least.
Incredible newfound strength he could wield with frightening effectiveness, or even the fact he took out both Goku and Vegeta in a single movement. What captured my imagination was everything else. What he said, how he said it, and all the small...
So I'll let you off easy today, but I came here in pursuit of a different target. So perhaps I wasn't being counted as part of this universe. I'm in innocent time in another dimension, you see. As it happens, my ship could use a cook and a waiter. You wouldn't happen to have any plans after all this. What? Okay, so I'm assuming, so that whole thing before with the 10 years of training, I'm assuming hyperbolic time chamber or some kind of, you know, space of room and room of space and time or some vibes, but okay.
Choices he made narratively between these larger movements. I think you can tell so much about a story and where it's going based on the curious words and choices of key characters. And this Frieza was different.
All while exploiting you for my army's benefit, I've known all about your ambitions. These past 40 years, I knew and I let you scurry around. Who is this directed at? Because I'm assuming it's not Goku and Vegeta. I'm assuming this is maybe what, Moro or Granola? Granola? Well, however the fuck you're supposed to pronounce his name.
Somehow. almost hinting towards something new and exciting on the horizon, something huge, and then nothing. What followed this earth-shattering moment was little more than an expansion or recap of Dragon Ball Super's latest film, Superhero.
That's a fucking letdown. Also, movie was pretty cool. Movie was pretty cool. This scene of the special beam cannon was fucking dope.
Leaving me still with the questions I've had all these years. Where did Toriyama intend for this story to go, and could we find any hints in
Yeah,
this
because we don't give a fuck about these little kids anymore.
Glimpse into a possible future for Dragon Ball Super? I think we can. And more than that, it's finally time I satiate my curiosity. Unearth as many hints and clues to a possible future within this long story, and present my official predictions and hopes for a Black Frieza arc.
I've never trained a day in my life. There was never a need. Imagine what could happen if I unlock my latent potential.
Frieza's so cool. I love Frieza. I know a lot of people think he's overdone and overused and whatever, but I'm such a sucker for Frieza.
Curious ways. Well, I enjoyed my all too brief slumber. Did that upstart Frieza manage to eradicate planet Vegeta for me?
Yeah, also, this whole thing of Frieza eradicated Planet Vegeta for Beerus, at some point, surely it's going to come into play.
No, this can't be real.
I just want to take this down slightly a little bit.
Will you keep your word or won't you?
By now, you should know that better than anyone, don't you?
The beauty of this prediction is that it's not entirely my own. There's a character often overlooked and forgotten in this story that could hold the key to just about everything. The Oracle Fish.
Excuse me? The fucking little throwaway thing that we all thought nothing of is now apparently of vital importance.
At the very beginning of Dragon Ball Super, the Oracle Fish's prophecy outlined an arch-rival that would appear in 39 years. But the Super Saiyan God was a prophecy Beerus introduced, not the Seer. It was Beerus who, according to Whis, has visions which reliably amount to nothing. So, if
Oh,
not a Super
fuck.
Saiyan God, who else might have emerged after 39 years? Well, the events that kick off Resurrection F occurred just 6 short months following the events of Battle of Gods.
Yeah, but also... Okay, I suppose he's going to explain the whole fucking timeline. But you can't tell me that the Frieza thing, or fucking Tournament of Power, all of that, or even the whole this thing was 39 years.
In other words, it's entirely possible that this arch-rival Beerus awoke to meet
Oh,
wasn't
shit.
Goku or some Super Saiyan God, but another great power that would rise up and change the course of Super's story forever. And that power I'm talking about is Frieza. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds insane. Goku's achievement of Super Saiyan God is really significant. Isn't
But Beerus
Super-
Beerus never actually went like to full power, so was it actually that significant that it actually counts as a rival because he wasn't trying?
version of Frieza pretty much the exact same as he was in Z.
Absolutely fucking not.
If there's any character in Super's history that has changed a staggering amount, it's Frieza. And the
That is fair. He's actually had a lot of character development.
greater and more gradual the change of character, the easier it is for us to see where they will ultimately end up. So what can Frieza's story tell us? Frieza, as we see him today, is unrecognizable to that which he once was. And that's not a criticism, that's a compliment. In Z, Frieza was a tyrant with a poisonous god complex. Unwavering in his worldview, he thought himself unstoppable and absolute. This was part of what made him
Well, he
such a
kinda
dangerous
was.
foil for the likes of Goku, whose worldview ran totally antithetical to that. During their legendary clash, each of them would try to nudge or move the other from their respective position, either through offers to join forces or chances to fight another day. But neither succeeded, both unwilling to compromise what they were, and in the end, both were forced into a position neither wanted. The message was crystal clear. That was fucking awesome, and yeah, Frieza couldn't change either. Blinded by his own narcissism at the
In fairness, it was pretty awesome. I will give him that. That was I still think one of probably the best arcs. And I mean, we got Super Saiyan from it, so I don't think anyone can argue with that.
forefront of the android's arc, Frieza's inability to grow from or
This was the biggest little. I watched this scene very recently. That was the biggest little bitch scene I've ever seen.
Or accept his first ever loss resulted in another unexpected and this time deadly defeat at the hands of one more Super Saiyan. In the end, he was nothing more than an uncompromising psychotic madman, bitter and pathetic. Then Super happened, and
Also, wasn't that in? Okay, in fairness, okay, Trunks might have been had harnessed at. Got an almost Super Saiyan power and harnessed it, but the whole thing of him being built into the weird android or Mecha Freezer is actually what we call him, was to make him a lot stronger and so much more powerful than what he was. And if he was at Goku's level, I know he just broke into Super Saiyan, would Trunks have mastered Super Saiyan to that extent that he was so much better than him?
and everything started to change. Frieza returned, and while still viciously thirsty for vengeance, there was an immediate but quiet acceptance that he was no match for the Saiyans. And so, for the first time ever, he trained. This was gigantic for the character. Prior to this, you could tell even his
that is
minions were
fair.
apprehensive to inform him of Goku and Ko's developments since his death, simply because the old Frieza would have cut them down where they stood for daring to suggest anyone could ever be superior to him. But this Frieza has learned from his past mistakes and became impossibly strong in just 4 short months. In that time, he managed to bridge the gap between he and the Saiyans to the point that he almost succeeded. But ultimately, it was that lingering vitriolic anger, that fragile and bruised ego from Namek, which remained and led him to make a severe error. Impatience. Impatience which made him little more than a fatigued sprinter trying to win a marathon.
Which was, in fairness, his exact downfall in Namek as well. He couldn't hold his... Because he was stronger than Super Saiyan at full power. He just couldn't hold his full power form for as long as Goku could Super Saiyan. If that makes sense? Ooh. That's a yawn. But that was, I suppose, his biggest downfall and still his biggest character flaw.
In reality, this fight was over before it even began. Fast forward a bit, and we're once again reintroduced to Frieza for the Tournament of Power. And upon hearing Goku's offer, Frieza further demonstrates adaptation and change. He accepts his current circumstances and his lack of leverage, and instead of succumbing once again to the anger that has defined his character's failures, he accepts Goku's offer to earn his life back. The old Frieza would never have been able to comprehend this offer, let alone leverage it for his own gain. Which is fitting
That
for
is actually fair.
strange and vulnerable scene at the very end asks both us as viewers and indeed Frieza himself to cast our minds back, to consider the final moments of Namek one more time, and for the first time, Frieza sees and understands that moment for what it was. Genuine, honest charity. There is just so much history and natural introspection packed into that short but perfect exchange. An admission from Frieza that he was wrong and that he can genuinely trust Goku's word, and that despite being brought back to life, some of those more poisonous traits which blinded him to reality may have stayed well and true. Truly dead forever. And this holds true for both the anime and the manga. Now, as I said, the super anime does conclude at this point. However, Toriyama's story most definitely does not. Through 2 films and more than 60 chapters of a long manga, Dragon Ball's and Frieza's story continues and develops. In Broly, that sense of urgency and anger we saw in Resurrection F has been well and truly replaced entirely by patience, strategy, and a new appreciation for the game, as he puts it.
That is actually very true. It does go a lot more like big picture and can't just the whole time, especially in like the Namek side, was just brute forcing everything. So it was just so much stronger. It didn't matter what the fuck he wanted to do. He was like he was at the pinnacle of power, so he didn't have to worry about anyone coming for him, anyone being near his level. So now, especially like the Broly saga became a thing of he was recruiting Broly to beat Goku and Vegeta because he couldn't. And even like killing Paragus, I think was his, Broly's dad's name, to try to push Broly over the edge to unlock his power that he had learned from when he killed Krillin to unlock Goku's power. Like, it's a very different tactical mindset of before it didn't matter what the fuck you wanted to do because I'm stronger than you, I could kill you. Now I actually have to try think about how to beat you and why I want to beat you and how I can beat you.
He still wishes to usurp Goku and friends. He still wishes for revenge, but he's not going to ruin the challenge by wishing for immortality, and he's not going to throw a tantrum or his life away childishly.
That is actually
He's aware
fair.
of what must be done. He admits that in a fight, Goku and Vegeta always seem to get the better of him, and so takes that humility one step farther by confessing that he too would like someone to fight alongside with against them. This scene from Broly and all those which preceded it in Super are what foreshadow and grant meaning to the actions and choices Frieza takes during his grand unveiling of Black Frieza. So, with all of that in mind, what can we learn from Chapter 87 with Black Frieza? With one stabbing strike, Frieza brings Gas's tragic and manipulated
I forgot
existence
it
to
was
an
Gas,
end.
my
A lot
bad.
of people missed this detail, but this attack was the true unveiling of his new deadly black form. And unlike Golden Frieza, where he had no regard for his own stamina, with this he chooses to use it in bursts. In a flash, so to speak. Almost like a retractable set of black claws puncturing his victim before immediately reverting back to his base, leaving everyone, including Vegeta and Goku, utterly dumbfounded, struggling to make sense of what just happened. But even in those more traditional moments, Frieza offers curious quotes like, "Why, there isn't a single thing in this universe I'm not privy to." In an instant, he exposes Alec for the coward and weakling that he is, that he has always known of his...
Well, while exposing you for my army's benefit, I've known all about your ambitions these past 40 years on Yun and let you scurry around.
And despite that,
Oh, we read that earlier.
it was for his force's benefit anyway. With little effort, in his base form no less, Frieza sees to the erasure of the Heater Leader in a blinding flash of light, and just like that, the chief enemy thought to be the strongest in the universe, and his master thought to be 2 steps ahead of everyone, were both overpowered and outsmarted in mere moments. And the best part is, he took his time. He achieved this new powerful form, yes, but unlike times past, where his desires to dispose of these two got in the way, he didn't run to these two Saiyans as soon as he achieved this new impressive form.
So he actually trained and worked on it.
Both Vegeta and Goku in
Because it was, in fairness, I mean, that was his, like you said, it was his downfall in Super, but it was also his downfall in Namek.
a single felled swoop. He does so without killing them. In fact, beyond testing out the results of his decade-long training cycle, he doesn't even toy with them like he did Alec. Instead, he relents and decides to just leave. He shows these two
So I'll let you have ease today, but I came in pursuit of a different target.
Saiyans he once would have given everything to kill by any means necessary mercy, offering them the chance to fight another day. So, now that we know that this is who modern Frieza is, where does his story and Super
Please don't be a... He's going to become a good guy.
At the beginning of this video, answering that question
Or an
would have
anti-hero.
been a nightmare had it not been for the often forgotten narrative spoiler that is the Oracle Fish, praise be upon him. First he says a rival
Oh,
worthy of
fuck,
fear
does he want to
is
become the god of
God.
destruction?
Great. Then in the Tournament of Power, he says both Vegeta and Goku will be his strongest rivals. And then in the Granola arc, this slippery little fella claims the balance is shifting and soon the strongest in the universe will rise up. All very foreboding, but oh so juicy in detail. So, in addition to this story with Frieza, we have this ongoing tale with Beerus and the Saiyans. And thankfully, these two stories are interweaving right this very second. As it stands, it seems Frieza is waiting for the right time to strike, meaning he's waiting for a version of Broly that is both under control and wants to fight with him. But there's just one small hiccup. Broly isn't under control and he doesn't want to fight with Frieza at all. So not ideal. Alright, so how do we connect these dots then? Simple. Dragon Ball Super Superhero has the answer. No, not that one.
Excuse me?
This one. As it happens, the events of Superhero canonically take place after Black Frieza's unveiling, and thankfully there are, shall we say, some new additions and changes in the manga. Ever since the Resurrection F film, the linchpin of Goku and Vegeta's training under Whis has been less flashy transformation and more efficient movement and thought during a fight. Literally one page following the Black Frieza chapter, Vegeta is seen pensively staring into the sky, worrying about the battles that loom ahead and his
As such, they continued their training in the hopes of defeating Frieza, as was Vegeta. So, the whole goal is to beat Frieza because they're back, but is Frieza's goal what? To find someone to fight them with? I don't understand because I can't.
Failures.
Yeah,
Jiren,
it just doesn't make
Zoro,
sense to me.
Gas, and now Frieza. All of these foes
What do they have that I lack? Jiren, Broly, Moro, Gas, and now even Frieza. I was shown to be inferior to all these foes of ours in recent years. Well, you're still the fucking scapegoat.
have gotten the better of him, and interestingly, in chapter 93, he notes that none of them are physically stronger than he. He says, "Our physical bodies have long since been honed to their limits. In that respect, our training already made us on par with them. The key difference lies in how we wield our power. There's still too much excess." I like this quote because it emphasizes that from henceforth we shouldn't think future powerful foes are superior physically, but rather more efficient and better trained mentally. This actually speaks to the improvement Frieza demonstrated following his recruitment into Universe 7 for the Tournament of Power. He was unable to train physically, but his mind was free to improve. That's honestly kind of cool, and the degree to which that worked for Frieza in that short amount of time highlights his natural aptitude for combat. Furthermore, following Superhero, the number of characters that are capable of standing up to Frieza has grown from just Goku and Vegeta to also include characters like Gohan and Piccolo, which is interesting.
Piccolo, maybe. As much as I hate to say that, I just wish they would actually make him fucking strong. And not like, oh, he has a throwaway fucking transformation, now on the level of maybe Super Saiyan Blue kind of thing, so he's still an extra, but to put him on the actual level of the strongest characters would be dope.
Because these were the main players who stood up to Frieza during the Namek arcs. Minus Krillin, of course, but I guess he landed Android 18, so who's the real winner here, am I right?
Yeah, I mean, damn straight, homie fucking did well for himself.
Right? During this material, Broly also seems to gain a greater degree of competence, both through Goku, Vegeta, and eventually Gohan's help. Now able to control his Super Saiyan state without losing his mind, it seems that Broly is well on his way to becoming Frieza's ideal partner in crime. So that takes care of half the problem. How does he figure out where Broly is, and more than that, how does he influence him? Admittedly, this is a reach, I know, but I have one potentially fun theory, and just hear me out. The very first time we ever heard from Black Frieza was in chapter 87, and during that chapter, I took note of one specific line. Why there isn't a single thing in this universe I'm not privy to. This implication...
Are they going to say this universe is in... Okay, yes, so he's... Unless it's not Room of like Spirit and Time or Half-Body Time Chamber, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Maybe it was literally in a different universe. Not like in a pocket dimension training, but literally in like fucking universe fucking 6 or 11 or 12 or 13 or whatever, training against some of the strongest people there.
That he has eyes and ears all over the universe that serve him is unsettling on its own, but I do wonder if it's more than just a chilling bluff. His specification of this universe got me thinking perhaps that those eyes and ears aren't all over the universe at all, but rather in one familiar spot. Zuno. We've actually seen in the past how easily he gives into pressure from external powerful foes. How quickly do you think he might fold if Black Frieza waltzes up to him, or worse again, kidnaps him and uses him for his own bidding? If Frieza actually has Zuno, then there really isn't a single thing in this universe.
I was not even thinking that.
He isn't lying, literally. If this Zuno character has a detailed spreadsheet in his mind for Bulma's bust measurements across time, then he definitely has all the answers Frieza requires.
Or, you know, he just loved them titties.
Dragon Ball loves to take the easy way out of corners they've written themselves into, and I think there's no more easy way out to solve this particular problem than by Frieza just rocking up to Zuno, periodically asking, is Broly done cooking yet? I've a mighty hankering for some broccoli. Also, how do you make friends?
Is Broly really going to be like the goal? I thought they were going to make him into like a fucking... I was assuming he was going to become one of the like Z team, Z fighters, whatever. A good guy. I don't think they'll try to turn him into a pseudo bad guy again, or a pseudo villain.
But here's the thing, right? Even if we accept that something happens that aligns Broly with Frieza and the two duke it out as two naturally gifted individuals that had to learn how to control their temper in order to be the most effective versions of themselves, what's this story gonna be about exactly? How do you write a conclusion to a story like this that isn't just they fight the end? It also doesn't exactly help things that this modern Frieza is unlike any other villain this story has ever seen. Normally,
why's the focus on Broly?
Fall into one of two camps in Dragon Ball. Either they show up, get defeated, and swapped out, or once they're defeated, they join the forces of good. Both are easy to predict,
Please, please don't make Frieza a good guy.
but Frieza is neither. He's Dragon Ball's first ever serious recurring villain, and no, I do not count the Pilaf gang. There
No, I don't feel like they really count as children.
just isn't enough precedent or information to make a leap with. The best moments of Dragon Ball for me have been the ones that feel both like a new contribution to the canon and harken back to the moments that grant them deeper significant. Wait. Frieza's entire story and change has been informed by one singular moment in time. What if the story is about that? A climax or arc built around Frieza's ultimate plan. An arc built on the growth and lessons this character has learned across the entire series. True to Dragon Ball, it'd be an arc filled to the brim with quality fights, but with the thematic backdrop of comparing Frieza's more heinous moments to that which he is now. The most dangerous incarnation of himself, no doubt, but also, possibly, the most human. And while I'm not going to sit here and choreograph a complicated fight sequence between all of these characters for obvious reasons, I mean, this is primarily a video on Frieza after all, while there will be other characters, I will only be talking about those individuals during the instances that pertain specifically to Frieza and his development in this story. And so with that in mind, there is one specific scene I would love to see as a grand finale to this tale. A scene that I like to call Frieza's final death. As this video has
No. What if he wins and it just ends? I mean, what better ending could there be to Dragon Ball Super or Dragon Ball as a whole as Frieza finally wins? Maybe he was the main character all along. And that's why he recurred in GT, in Z, in Super, because he was really the main character.
has outlined from the very beginning, Frieza's introspection, course correction, and recollections have not just offered opportunities to see his darker sides, but additionally moments of protruding light. Choosing effort, choosing to train his mind, choosing to manage his emotions, choosing to show mercy, and choosing to trust in the goodwill of others. Each of these choices and snapshots from Frieza's long history within Dragon Ball Super demonstrate a death of sorts. And no, I'm not talking about the instances where he has literally perished. I'm talking about the death of who Frieza is and the subsequent birth of who he could possibly be.
Okay, so
Countless
was a metaphorical death he was referring to.
moments have begun breaking down this once thought to be unshakable psychopath in Frieza, but break him down to what exactly? What lies underneath? Something good? Something terrible? Whatever that something is, we truly do not fully understand how to predict it, and therefore determining the answer to that very question should be the climax to this story, I think. Frieza's final moment, a chance for reconciliation, or to simply double down like he always has. So much of Super has concerned itself with references to the past, like Cell Max, Gohan's Beast transformation, Piccolo's sacrifice, future Trunks needing help again, Vegeta's sacrifice again during the Tournament of Power. The list could honestly go on and on, but the issue with these moments was never that they were callbacks, but that they were vapid and lazy nostalgia bait trying to disguise the inorganic writing. Frieza's
Well, that was fucking indictment to Dragon Ball Super if I've ever heard one.
story doesn't need to inorganically harken back to better days, because his story is defined specifically by those very days. Those very iconic moments that still hang in the backs of our minds. For Frieza, that final standoff between himself and Goku has literally haunted him for decades now. And so, I ask, what if, instead of being forced to think back to that very moment, he was physically dragged there through his own actions once again, the remnants of who he was? And to me, what's fascinating about this possible nostalgic circumstance is that it won't just say something about Frieza, it has the potential to say something about Goku, Vegeta, and Broly. For the bulk of Super, Goku and Vegeta
And I feel like Gohan. I feel like if they're also going for nostalgia in some way and callbacks, I think Gohan will have to be involved somehow, because I mean, that was such a big part of the Namek saga, especially the early piece.
have been at odds over what is and is not permissible in the heat of battle or in the name of battle. So much of Goku's story has seen him on the receiving end of ridicule at the hands of others for either being too lackadaisical or nonchalant in the face of certain danger. And so, this is where the interesting part comes into play. Does it necessarily need to be Goku and Goku alone standing before Frieza? I don't think so. In
No,
the
I also agree
moral
with that. I don't
and
think it
hero
has to be.
survival arcs, Goku's criticized for being incredibly reckless, but at the same time complimented as being this force that has changed others for the better. Namely, Piccolo and Vegeta. Goku certainly took reckless opportunities to fight them again, but through that, they were given the chance to change.
And I feel like Broly to some extent as well. Because I don't think they ever... I think it was inherently evil either in the whole... I suppose in Z and... Z. In Super and the movie. But he saw Goku and Vegeta as a villain and was coached into believing they were villains and encouraged in a way to see them as villains. They let him go, fair enough, but it doesn't change whether or not he would have seen them as enemies. Even if they weren't villains in his world, they would still be enemies. So I feel like they could also throw Broly on that pile as well.
To be better. But now Frieza is back again and places everyone in danger again. Just like Namek, just like during the Androids arc, Resurrection F, Broly, and now this, his most sophisticated and deadly attack to date. How many times can one person be given a second chance? That,
Dude, just like fucking chance 10.
to me, is an interesting question, not for Goku to answer, but for literally everyone else on the battlefield. And so, I'll present you a situation. What if Frieza were to lay there, defeated and alone yet again, finding himself in that all-too-familiar situation? What then? What if he looks up and sees Goku standing there, raising his arm like he did all those years ago on Namek, and right as he's about to do what we all believe he will again, Vegeta grabs his arm. It's here Vegeta's story comes into play and the scope of the situation expands even further. Though not to the same extent as Frieza, Vegeta is a character that too has undergone a lot of change. His sensitivity to
I feel like literally the biggest change and probably the most character growth out of any character in Dragon Ball. I know a lot of people argue Piccolo, but I mean, fucking Vegeta, I suppose you can argue either or, but I feel like in terms of character development, plot integrity, I think is why probably I put him above Piccolo, because Piccolo doesn't really fucking exist after... I suppose he's somewhat there in the Namek and Android arc, but he's not useful. He's there as like almost filler time. It's just not particularly relevant. Or integral really to most of the story, but not the point. I feel like you can argue... Well, Vegeta's probably at the most character development and most growth out of anyone.
consequence has made him a voice of reason when in the past he
Also, he was or is one of Akira Toriyama's least favorite characters. Quite widely known. And unfortunately, with Akira Toriyama's passing and Toyotaro taking over, does this mean that Vegeta might actually get a bit more love? And I don't mean in terms of focal point, but in terms of him for once maybe actually being relevant and the strongest character for an extended period of time, not for a whole 5 seconds. I mean, even as Blue evolved, was just brought him up to Kaioken, to Blue Kaioken. Like, would it actually be chances shine where at least for one arc or one storyline or one part of it, or, you know, for one story, he is the strongest. He's not just, oh, here's the throwaway transformation Vegeta gets to kind of allow him to beat the B or C or D character while Goku gets the bigger transformation and actually beat the main antagonist. I don't want to use the word villain because I don't really see Jiren as villain. He was more of an antagonist to the story at that time.
lashed out angrily. His willingness to look to others for guidance has allowed him to surpass Goku for the very first time in a one-on-one fight. And throughout the Moro arc, we were forced to watch on as he had to carry the weight of his past sins, repenting for his former selfish, deadly ways. Piccolo has even noted in the past that the reason individuals like he and like Vegeta exist at all and carry out the good that they do is because of this naive and selfish mercy Goku offers. However, despite all of that, Vegeta in this moment would be resolute. He's lost too much at the hands of this monster. He's certain that Frieza is rotten to the core and cannot change like the others have. And unlike Goku, we know Vegeta is willing to do what must be done. He's been here before, staring down at this pathetic monster, begging, crying, and manipulating his way into a better position. There's nothing this creature who has taken so much from him could possibly say that would surprise the prince anymore. But as he raises his hand, he hears one faint plea. Do it. There is no begging, no lying, no attempt at manipulation, just a warrior wishing for it all to end quickly, to be
No.
put out of his misery. Acceptance. It's here
That
one
that
of two
can't be a
things could
thing.
happen. Either we accept that the sacrifice required to save Frieza's soul is too heavy a burden to pay, or we accept that he is different, that he's become one of the most effective fighters in the universe through his own hard work. He's fought alongside our heroes earnestly and learned what it is to truly trust in them altruistically. And so, I think in this moment, Vegeta would be shocked by this response. To what extent his shock would be is up for debate, but this change hits to his core and his individual story too. A shock that could lead to momentary hesitation.
I'm sure he stopped playing with the cam
long
boom.
enough for
Mic
Broly
boom.
to stand before him to stop him. The story of Broly's character isn't complicated, nor is it long, but it is
Why would Broly stop him?
brimming with emotion and trauma. A tragic but complicated childhood troubled by a society that rejected him, cast him astray, and a father that feared and tortured him. For his entire life, he's been the tool of weaker, angry, bitter men, and I think the resolution to Broly's story is for him to no longer feel anger or to dance to the whims of others like he has. There are questions as to how Frieza could manipulate Broly in the first place to get him here. Answers that could range from as boring as Zuno told him of how his father died to Frieza's own admittance, allowing him to use it as yet another point of manipulation, pointing out to Broly that he saw the pain his father caused him and before he could do any more, stopped him.
I don't feel like they could belittle his character that much either. He's gone through quite a lot of his own character development and like become almost accepting or accepted by Goku and Vegeta. And like training on Beerus' planet and everything like that. Surely it won't be a case of he's that easy manipulated and goes back into an antagonist of some sort.
Whatever the case may be,
I don't want to use the
Broly
word
needs to
villain.
break free from these shackles, to no longer allow others to influence his behavior and force him to bring pain onto others because, at his core, Broly is gentle. That's the tragedy of his character. And if he were to stand up in that moment, he wouldn't want anyone else to die, finally liberated by the anger that has defined him for so many years. But is this the right decision? Was this path Goku set Frieza down enough? Or was Vegeta's solution necessary and right?
Okay, so Broly
The
would have
interesting thing
helped
about
save
this
him,
scenario is
not
that
kill
there
him.
is technically no right or wrong answer if you're not clairvoyant. And if I was writing this, I wouldn't offer an answer. But as the tension is released and everyone takes a breath, I would have someone else join the scene, or
Nah, fuck off, dude. We have to get an answer. We have to get an...
rather someone's. Beerus, Whis, and the
Okay. So, Vegeta wants to kill him. Broly actually says no. Let him be because, okay, that all makes sense. But now, what the fuck do Beerus and Whis have to do with it?
Oracle Fish. At the very beginning of this story, an individual was born into the world of Dragon Ball Super, armed with a new mindset that assured his incredible power grew exponentially. With that power, his temperament too changed. And in this moment, I would love for Beerus and Whis to take this chance to offer Frieza the opportunity to one day become a destroyer god. And if you think about it, it makes sense. He fits the initial prophecy, he possesses the requisite power, and now has the correct temperament and mindset. Moreover,
And likes to
he has
destroy
no
shit.
experience carrying out Beerus' dirty work when he wasn't willing to. In my view, he's the perfect candidate for such a role, but how could this scenario play out? Would Frieza allow this hauntingly familiar circumstance manifest into yet another bitter and dark end, rife with meaningful character reflection for the likes of Goku, or would he accept the possibility that he can find meaning through the light in a position that seems to fit him perfectly? This is about the moment where I'm sure you're hoping for me to give you some sort of definitive end with a clear message. But
No,
in
that's just some
truth,
bullshit.
that's not at all what I want this to be. As I've said in this video and during my coverage of the Frieza arc in my Ultimate Review series, the conclusion to that story has been both my favorite and one I've not been able to stop thinking about since I saw it back when I was a little kid. It is a scene tortured by morbidly grotesque shades of grey with a message that, can be both depressing and uplifting in equal measure. That final scene on Namek was the culmination of a struggle between two staunch ideologies that were diametrically opposed, a battle that saw either side refuse to budge even an inch in the face of overwhelming evidence that the other wasn't willing. Goku, in that he gave Frieza that chance despite what everyone had been telling him, and Frieza unwilling to accept defeat and make sense of the gift that was just handed to him. And in the end, neither man won. Goku might have stood victorious, but that wasn't what he wanted. I opened this video by saying that there's been this recent scene I haven't been able to stop thinking about. A scene that has made me consider this moment as a possibility for the future. A scene that would mean that this battle, which came to its cataclysmic conclusion on Namek, has in truth been raging on for decades in the background in the hearts and minds of those involved ever since. Warping and changing these characters to the point a very real outcome could be in the cards. Does this mean that the ending would be unambiguous? I certainly hope not. Because what made that scene on Namek so powerful to me was how much it made me consider the decisions that were made, with it ultimately leaving both Goku and Frieza in want. I do wonder, however, if through this approach, if Frieza were to accept the possibility of more through becoming the God of Destruction for Universe 7, could we achieve that same morally ambiguous conclusion? Only this time, instead of concluding on a down note drenched in darkness, we end on the possibility for a brighter tomorrow. Whatever the case may be, I would love to hear your thoughts on this and how likely you think it is for that scene to come full circle like I've outlined here. This video has honestly been insane, and odds are all of this is absolutely not going to happen, but it has been very fun to consider nevertheless. Predicting what Toriyama might have done is like trying to catch smoke with a sieve, but I tried my best. And my hope is that in the process you had fun too. But that'll do it for this week, folks. Daima is coming out soon, so subscribe for my coverage of that.
That's a very interesting take on what could happen. But see, for me, the thing is, something that, okay, also in fairness, I got too many ideas one time. Frieza being offered the position of Destroyer God kind of makes sense with his character arc. And with that whole link up and something, that's actually quite a cool tease if it is what the Oracle Fish meant, blah, 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 blah. But I think something that we're not actually clear on is what the fuck does a Destroyer God do? We understand that, yes, they're responsible for destroying. I mean, that's pretty well cleared out. But I mean, the methods and choice and their actual physical role and what justifies what they destroy. Because the whole time we've seen is Beerus just destroys because, like, fucking sweet food was shit. Bam, dead. Planet gone. There was no justification around what he did or why, or if there were certain roles, regulations, relationships, like fucking KPIs for him to hit on his job. There was no real information is given to as to what their physical role is and how they do their job, just that they're destroyer gods and they can destroy. There was never any like clarity on, oh, if someone gets too strong, they must kill them, or if a planet is, I don't know, on the brink of collapse because they've destroyed it, blah, 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 destroy the planet. Like, there's no physical description of what their actual job or role is, just who they are, what their role is. Like, they're destroyer god. Cool, we have a title, we don't know what they physically do or what justifies the actions they take. And I feel like without a clear indication of why or what they do, yes, Frieza fits the role of what is emphasized by Beerus and Whis and the other destroyer gods we've seen through a Tournament of Power and stuff, but what is his physical job and or role? And then what happens to Beerus in that sense? It's a case of, oh, Beerus passes, you get the job, but when the fuck does Beerus pass? Also, how do you decide when to hand it down? Because obviously, yeah, in the Tournament of Power, Top unlocked Power of God of Destruction, but they still had a God of Destruction. So how does that also work? Does that mean he now trains with Goku and Vegeta? In terms of he's going to take the role of Destroyer God one day, and they not? And I thought the whole Ultra Ego, Ultra Instinct thing was to have that, like, dynamic opposition to Beerus and Whis and Goku and Vegeta, each wielding one of the other powers on opposite ends as mortals. Yes, although I don't think they were ever going to take the role of like Destroyer God and the Angel. I just thought it was like the opportunistic like comparison of the two sets. I don't know. I just feel like obviously yes, Frieza could take the role and could fit the role, but what is the physical role aside from a tassel? Like that's also a piece that I think hasn't really been explained unless I've just missed it. But it is very interesting where they're going to go with that. I didn't realize, in my mind, I knew what was happening. I haven't read much of the manga, but I didn't realize that Black Frieza showed up, knocked Goku and Vegeta out, and then cut to them training with Gohan, Piccolo, and Broly. He intentionally let them get away, or left them to live in terms of what? To get stronger to fight him again? What is his like ultimate plan and goal here? I don't know, there's a lot of questions. This was actually really well done, really interesting. Totally Not Mark, fucking great content. Link was down in the description below, like always, for the video. Show Totally Not Mark some love. Watch his other shit. It's fucking great. Great content creator. But yeah, that's actually really interesting.